Hello class, in this video I want to talk about demand. Um, Demand and supply are two opposing forces that make the market, any market basically, work. Demand is coming from one side of the market that we're all familiar with because we're all buyers, we're all consumers, we are all demanders. So all the buyers together can create the demand, okay? Demand shows basically how much we as a buyers are willing to pay for certain products. There are many factors that can affect your purchasing plans as a buyer because the demand also shows the purchasing power of all the consumers in the market. But probably the major factor that affect your purchasing plans as a buyer is the price of the product. So the demand itself shows the relationship between price of the product and how much of that product the buyers are gonna buy. When all the other factors like your income, your preferences, your expectations about future prices, your expectations about future income, and so forth, may affect your purchasing plans. Okay, we call all these other factors or any factor other than price that can affect your purchasing plans as the determinants of demand in this chapter, in chapter 3. The price can only change how much you buy as a buyer. If the price of the product is $1, you are gonna buy, let's say, 5 units of good X. If the price goes up from $1 to $3, then the quantity of that product that you are going to buy, which is called quantity demanded, will change. Okay, so the demand basically shows this relationship between price and quantity demanded, and we're kind of all familiar with it. We know if something becomes more expensive, you buy less. If something gets cheaper, you buy more, right? So this is the relationship that the demand can show us. And this relationship, by the way, is called law of demand. It's the inverse relationship between price and how much goods and services you want to buy as a buyer. Make sure that you know the difference between demand, which is the relationship between price and how much you buy, and quantity demanded. Quantity demanded is the amount of goods and services that all the buyers in the market are willing to buy. Okay, so if the price again for, let's say, Apple, 1 pound of Apple is $1.5, you're gonna buy 1 pound of Apple. This 1 pound is your quantity demanded. But if you have different prices, different quantity demanded, which is nothing but, in this example, the number of pounds of Apple that you buy, then you're talking about demand. Quantity demanded is 1 point on the demand curve. Okay, when you study this chapter, as soon as we define demand, we also draw the demand curve and show that inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. And you will look at the shape of the demand, which is downward slope. So 1 point on this downward slope demand curve is your quantity demanded. If price of the product changes, your quantity demanded will change. If price of any product changes, the number of goods and services that you buy will change. The number of goods and services for that specific product that you buy will change. But if we're talking about anything other than price, like these determinants of demand that I named, that you can also go ahead and look at them on the lecture notes or the textbook. If all these factors change, then you are going to shift your demand. Okay, you shift your demand curve. But if the price is changing, we're just jumping from 1 point to another point on the very same demand curve. We call this shift change in demand. Okay, so if anything other than price changes, you are no longer on the same demand curve and you are going to shift your demand. If demand goes up, the demand curve will shift to the right. If demand goes down, then the demand curve will shift to the left. Look for the determinants of demand in the lecture note and see when the demand is going up or down. Okay, and remember, when we talk about determinants of demand, we're looking at one factor at a time. Okay, for instance, income. If your income goes up, in general, your demand for most of the goods that we call them normal goods will go up. So the demand curve will shift to the right. But if again, we're talking about price of specific product, there is no shift. We have the very same concept also for supply. I'm going to explain more about the supply in the next video. So read the definition of demand, know how we draw the demand curve, know what we mean by law of demand, what are the determinants of demand. These are the factors that shift the demand, and know the difference between change in demand, which is shifting the demand, and change in quantity demanded, which is moving along the same demand. And also make sure you know the difference between demand and quantity demanded. Thank you.